In this demo, we're going to talk about how to insert an Excel table onto your spreadsheet. So now I'm on a sample spreadsheet, and you should have this spreadsheet in your project files. So I'm looking at a table of data. Now here I'm just going to call it a table of data, so as not to create any confusion. And all of us are pretty aware of this dynamic, right? We have our header names across the top. We have our rows, which are our records, going down. None of this should be very new to any of us. And in fact, for many of us, we've lived in this world of tables for a long time. So let's say I want to do something interesting with this table. So the typical way that people want to do, when I say interesting, do some analysis of some sort, the typical way many people do this is to highlight the whole table, and that's what I'm going to do here. And then I'm going to go over here to sort and filter, and I'm going to click this filter button. Okay, so this is an auto filter. This is the typical way we deal with tables and data. So most of us who have used auto filters before, and if you haven't, don't worry, this functionality is also available in tables because I know you'll like it. If we go to names, we see that we can hide names on this list, as I've done right there. We can do other things under amount purchased. I can add a sort of filter. I can say less than, let's say 5,000. I'll hit enter, and you can see that it's performed a filtered operation on that data. Now, here's one of the problems with this. And it's not a huge problem, but it's something that tables does eliminate. If I wanted to add information down here, because I have more records I've pulled out from a new system, I hit Control V, I dump it in. We all know that method. If I want to do that, I would have to undo these filters. And the reason is because the filters were applied on the data set that ends right here. So if I added something, it wouldn't be included. So we don't really like that. We actually find that a little tacky. So what will I need to do to create a table? Well, first of all, we're going to just get rid of these regular filters. We're going to get rid of those. So here's what I can do. If I want to have functionality where the information that I add to the bottom is always added to the table, well, what I'll do is I'll actually insert a new table. Now, what I'm going to do is highlight this whole region. You don't always need to do that. Sometimes Excel is smart enough to pick up what you're trying to do and put into the table. But for the sake of being explicit and ensuring we get what we want, I'm going to highlight that whole region. So I've gone over here to the Insert tab. I can click Table right over here. Note that you can also hit Control-T. That is the quick way of doing it. So I've hit that button. The Create Table pop-up box comes up. My table does indeed have headers. So I will check that. If you're doing this with data on your own, sometimes Excel does not pick up that you have headers. So make sure to double check that before you hit OK. So I'm going to hit OK here. If you hit OK, you've said it's included headers. When it hasn't, Excel is going to take that top row and turn it into a header. So we don't really want that. Just make sure you're very explicit. So I have now added a table in here, and you can see I can click these drop downs. It actually has the same functionality as those filters. Isn't that very, very cool? Now I'm going to hit OK here, and I'm just going to show you a few of the things that we can do with tables. So first of all, if I scroll down, I want you to watch what happens to this header row of A, B, C, D, E, and F. So I'm going to scroll down here. Now watch what happens. Oh, you see. So you see that those column letters actually become the name of the fields. And isn't that convenient? And I can still use these in the same way that I could use them before. I don't even need to be looking at the header row. So the first thing that tables solves is you no longer need to freeze panes. And I personally think that makes them worth it on their own. But the other thing you can do with them, and I urge you really to go light on the features here, is you can do some coloring. We have a header row that's been formatted. You see this is under the Design tab. I can add or remove banded rows. I can go over here and I can add or remove formats. I'm going to tell you what I like to do, and that is I like to remove all the formats because personally, I think that those formats are just bloat, and as you've probably already heard me complain about them earlier. So that's what I like to do. Feel free to do what you want. Just remember to keep in mind that the more formats you have, the more Excel needs to carry per record. So I'm going to remove them because I think they're annoying. But do what you will on your side. So now that I've sort of set it up, I urge you, if you would like, to check out the new table styles. If you have a style that you're particularly interested in, like reusing, you can go in there. You can change everything from having banded rows to banded columns. stuff like that. So now that we have our table in the format that I like, the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go up here to where it says table name, right? And you see it says table 1. This is always the first thing I recommend you do when you make a table. And that is you should change this to a name that's meaningful. If you make lots of tables, and each worksheet could have many tables, and each workbook can have as many tables as memory can hold, it can get very confusing if it's table 1 and table 2 and table 3, and we will refer to these later. So always pick a nice name. If you can't think of one, data works, database works, raw data works. We're going to go with database here, and I'm going to hit enter. So you see the name has changed to database. So that's going to become important in a minute, but before I do anything else, I do want to show you how these tables work. So over here in cell H2, let's say I want to figure out how many records there are here in this table. What I can do is I can say equals count, and I'm going to do a count all, and I'll do it on this first column, column A. So we have our count all. Now what do I want to count? Well, if we use structured references with a table, it becomes very easy. So here in count A, parenthesis, I'm going to write database. Oh, you see I started writing database, and the word database came up with this kind of grid looking thing. I'll just select that, and you see that it's highlighted this whole region. Wow. Isn't that fantastic? So quick, too. So let's say I want to get that column A that has the names in it that we're interested in counting. So what I can do here is I can hit that square bracket that's right near your enter key to the right of the P key. So you see I've hit that square bracket. And now Excel has said, hey, look at all these things you can pick from. So I see names is right here, so I'm going to double click that, and I'll close that bracket. Now look what Excel did. It highlighted the size of that table. So I'll hit close parenthesis here, and I'll hit enter. And you see it says 100 records. Now what happens if I want to add another record? Well, what I'll do here is I'll go all the way down, and let's try adding another record. So I'll hit control, I'll hit down. That's going to take me to the last item in the used range. And I'll just type in Jordan. Let's say I use the same account number as this person. Let's say I also use their credit card number. Don't tell them, though. And 5,000. Country, USA, and my company, Excel TV. Now, what you might notice here is that this little blue piece here is now at the bottom record, and before it was up here. So this blue piece here, I'm going to just hold it and drag it a little bit. You can see it moves. I can actually expand this table however I want, but I'm not going to mess with that there. I just want to show you that Excel has visually indicated that this is a table and where it ends. But I will scroll back up, and we see that the new count is 101. So let's think about this. I didn't have to go in and retype count A and then reselect that range. Excel knows that range automatically. So that is what's called a structured reference. And in fact, if I go over here to cell G1, and I type in a new column name, we'll call it a test column here, you see that it's actually added a new column in. So isn't that something? These tables can grow, and they can shrink, and they can be used for a lot of different things.